There we are.
Ah,
So,
nice.
Jesus, you are literally in the middle of the ocean. Christ.
We are, yeah. We're off the coast of. Well, we've actually just spotted New Caledonia for the first time, which is
Are
quite
you,
cool.
you got this land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why have you got a head torch on?
We've just come out of night shift, and it actually just holds my hair out of my eyes. So quite often I'll keep it on until it gets too hot.
He wears it. He wears it all day, Kenton. It's quite the look.
Yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, I mean, are we recording this? I mean, what's the deal? Oh, we are recording.
I think we are. Yeah, we are. If that's okay with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, Jesus, I don't quite know what to say. Dinner with the Macleans. Well, so what is for dinner? Are you just on freeze dried?
We're just on freeze ride. Yeah, we do apologise. We'd hoped maybe you'd get one of our homemade freeze dried meals, but I think it was just logistically too difficult. But we'll need to get one to you in the future.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, I have enough freeze-dried food in my in what I do, so
I
I'm
can
not
only
entirely
imagine.
sure if I need any more. But thank you.
But it's homemade freeze dried. So we've eaten lots of store bought stuff, and to be honest, didn't really like any of it.
No,
So we
yeah,
made a
it's
load. Yeah,
all a bit rubbish. I mean, I
yeah.
shouldn't say that because I'm supported by Firepot,
Uh,
and they're like massively calorific.
yeah,
And if you look at the nutritional breakdown, it's all pretty good.
yeah.
But even and it's vegan, which is great. How many of you are there? There's three of you, isn't there? Because I can
There's
see
three of
some
us. Yeah,
arm in the background.
Ewan's
You can
just
see it.
slaving away
You
on
can
the
see. You
oars.
can get a full boat picture here.
Okay, so it's working out there. So you're okay. So you're in the front not doing anything, or the back not doing anything, and then
Stern. Yeah,
are putting forward their worth.
yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm just chilling out, and then I'll swap with Ewan. So you'll get a chat with Ewan as well.
So how does it
Uh,
work for three of you then? Because I mean, when there's two, it's like I don't know, was it two on, two off? And then if there's
Yes.
four, it's like two on, two off. For
Yeah.
but it's two people. So how do you guys work it?
We do. It really depends on the conditions, but at the moment we're doing two on, one off during the day. So it's normally like an hour on, half an hour off from 6 a.m. till 7 or 8 p.m. And then we do a one on, two off at
So,
night. If that makes
so,
sense.
so there's normally three of you rowing.
No, there's normally two of us rowing.
So
Or
yeah,
there's
but,
always,
but,
yeah.
but then how do you work the shifts?
So we stagger it in. So Ewan will row for an hour and then swap with Lachlan, and then I'll be half an hour after Ewan starting, and then I'll row for an hour, and then Lachlan, and then it's just like a stagger like that. 2 hours. So you do an hour on, half an hour off, but there's always two on the oars.
Wow.
It's always a bit confusing. We still struggle sometimes to get our heads around it. I'll be honest.
And then what happens at night time? Because on that premise, there's no rest.
Yeah, it's so the nights we kind of flip it, so it's like one on, two off, but we do a slightly longer on shift. So we've got like an hour 40 on, and then we all have it's kind of like just over 3 hours, and we repeat that cycle twice. So we each have like two windows of about 3 hours of resting. So it's probably about between 4.5 and 5.5 hours of like probably sleep, with some faffing about in between.
Sounds a bit grim to
Yeah,
me.
yeah. We've actually just so recently there was when we were going to be going below New Caledonia. So we're kind of about 1,200 miles off the coast of Australia.
Yeah.
And the plan was we passed Tonga and Fiji, and then the plan was to go south of New Caledonia and just kind of jump across to Brisbane or maybe slightly north. But there was a
Yeah.
big storm off the coast, pretty much exactly where we were going to be going. It wasn't quite a cyclone, but I think it was like 50 knots, and it has to be 64 knots or something for it to be a cyclone. But anyway, we wanted to get the fuck out of the way of that, and decided
Nice.
to we've instead had to go north. We're going to go around the top end of New Caledonia, but bizarrely we had 2 days on anchor in the Loyalty Islands. So we had our first. It's like first kind of 2 days of not on the move, not doing. And we had like a 6 hour night of sleeping. So yeah,
And the
117 days in, I think.
and the anchor is just one of those sort of sea anchor things. You like sort of put it over the side, it fills sort of water, and it actually like sort of stabilizes the boat and stops the boat moving. Is that
So
right?
So no, we've got one of them. So we've got a parachute anchor. So we actually used that last night because we had lots of headwind. But yeah, we've also got like a normal anchor and chain.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's what we were using near the islands. Yeah.
Well, that must work.
Um,
I mean, what are you doing hefting that over?
Yeah, I mean, it's generally it's if you're like getting blown onto a reef, or you have to use it in an emergency. I think in our case it was, yeah, just because we were getting out the way of this weather that was coming in. It is pretty light though. It's like an aluminium, quite a small thing, but it's amazing how it holds the boat. We will tend to like dive down and just check that it's bedded in well into the sand. But it's remarkable what you can hold. I think the chain holds the boat as much as the anchor, even more than the anchor. But
Huh.
yeah, it's quite a heavy thing to be taking with you 9,000 miles. Yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just like I'm all about trying to save weight, and you guys are like, yeah, just
yeah,
bring an anchor.
yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not. I mean, it's not the most ridiculous weight we've taken because we're the same. Like trying to, any gram we can get rid of. But then we've got some kind of exceptions. We've got 3 musical instruments, which is just ridiculous if you're trying to save weight. So we've got a set of bagpipes. We've got a small guitar. I mean, it's not actually that small. Ewan said it was a small guitar. It looks like a pretty normal sized guitar to me.
Looks like a normal size guitar when I'm carrying.
Yeah, I mean, Ewan is quite small, so he says it looks like a normal guitar when he's carrying it. And
Well,
then I've got a little baby
well,
accordion.
I suppose you could have taken a ukulele. Is it a ukulele? Well, what was a small guitar? It's
Yeah,
a ukulele, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
ukulele.
Ukulele,
Yeah, he
yeah,
did. He took that. He took that when we did an Atlantic crossing about 5 years ago, and he took a ukulele on that. But he said it wasn't. He couldn't play enough tunes on it. Too, yeah, so we've had to make do with a full size guitar.
And did you say bagpipes?
Yes, set of bagpipes. Yeah, Highland bagpipes.
And, but I'm trying to get my head around this a little bit. But the boat's tiny, is it not? I mean, and bagpipes are quite big. I mean, so the boat. And forgive me, I should have done perhaps a bit more research. I mean, I know a little bit about ocean rowing. So the boat, has it got 2 cabins each end? It's got a cabin each end, or is it just one cabin?
It does, yeah. So it's got these like two little pods either end that are when you get in them, when you want to lie down, you have to tuck your feet under the row deck. So about half your body's in the cabin, half your body's under the row deck, and then there's the row deck, which is probably it's like 1.8 meters wide, and it's I don't know 4 meters long, 5 meters long.
So where do the
And we spent
bagpipes go? I mean, because bagpipes are pretty big.
the bagpipes actually they pack down pretty small. Once you squeeze all the air out of them, once you give them a good squeeze, they pack it pretty small. You can tuck them into a little nook and cranny.
in a
But
dry bag.
it's yeah, in a dry bag, right up at the nose. I mean, there's quite a lot of like, I mean, as you can imagine, we've got space now, but when we left Peru, we had 5 months worth of freeze dried food, which was and
Yeah.
snack packs and things. It was jam packed, but we can finally breathe a little bit now.
And how's it working on the food? I mean, are you just left with the dregs that that you didn't want to eat to start with? Because I did that. I did that in Greenland once, where you ordered decent food to start with, and
Oh
then
yeah.
2 weeks later, you're like, oh, I don't like mushroom stroganoff. I don't want that one again.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. For us, it's the reindeer stew. We've got a real term at reindeer stew, which we're not very fond of. To be honest, it's not as bad as we thought it was. When we were at anchor over the last couple of days, we did like a full stock check, and kind of mapped out the meals between here and when we arrive. And it's not as bad as we feared. We did go pretty hard on the good meals. We ate kind of most of the homemade meals at the beginning because they're just so much nicer. But then we're kind of almost down to the dregs. We might in a couple of weeks' time we'll run out of snack packs, and we're getting pretty low on gas. So we're kind of eating our meals warm, and I think in a couple of weeks they'll be cold. So
Yeah. So I was literally about to ask you that, whether you're using like a jet boil or something similar, and whether you've got,
yeah,
I'm making up like 200 cylinders of epi gas or something.
yeah,
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 it's
pretty good.
just a jet ball, just a straightforward jet ball sumo, and we probably we brought enough gas. We did a calculation. I mean, we brought as much as we could fit, but that clearly wasn't quite enough. Didn't quite build in enough contingency.
Yeah,
So
I'm getting the vibe that perhaps preparation is not your strongest point here, lads. It's like, any more gas in, we just go for it. Yeah, let's eat all the decent meals to start with. Let's eat all the snack packs, and we'll just like fudge
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, I think on certain areas, yes. On other, on certain, like we forgot hair bubbles. We only brought 3 hair bubbles, and as you can see, Jamie and I have quite long hair, so that was definitely. But then, I mean, in a lot of, I think a lot of areas we were, yeah, like pretty well prepared. I think we like trained and prepared our bodies maybe quite well. But no, you're right. There definitely were last minute things, which was like, shit, how much gas do we need? How do you calculate that? We'll almost make it. It's fine.
I was looking at your website. I mean, maybe I've got this wrong, but I don't remember you having long hair beforehand. So hair bubbles or hair ties or whatever. I mean, why would you think about using hair ties? I mean, it's just something. I mean, it wouldn't even factor into my calculations.
Yeah, it's we Jamie and I did have quite long hair. Ewan has been frantically trying to grow his hair out, so he's almost able to put it in a hair bubble. But not quite. You, to be fair, Ewan's hair has gone from like dark brown and not that long to quite long and quite blonde. So it's yeah, his appearance has changed considerably.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, just remind me, how long you been on the road for? 100 and something days?
yeah, we've been at sea now for this is day 117, 117 days, and we anticipate there's at least 3 to 4 weeks left.
Okay, so you kind of you could argue that you've broken the back of it, maybe. Um, I mean, there's 3 of you. I'm just intrigued by the dynamics.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, has it been that you want to throw one of you overboard, or one of you gets a decent meal and one of you doesn't, or I mean, I mean, I suppose in simplest terms, I mean, have you managed to piss everybody off?
I think we've been pretty, overall, it's been pretty good. Obviously, there's generally, I'd say the fallings out are probably food related. Like, it's like you're thirding something, you've got a chocolate bar, you're cutting it into thirds, and you think that they've got more than you've had. But I'd say, to be honest, I think that because we're brothers, I think
I was
we
going to
can
say
be pretty upfront.
that's surely just like growing up, though. You've got the bigger
Exactly.
Yeah,
chips,
And
or you drink your ice cream and you want the other ice cream, or whatever it is.
exactly, yeah. And I mean, the blessing of being out here is we're on a very small boat and there's lots of sharp corners and, like having a wrestle isn't really an option. So we no, we're careful to, I think just keeping, I think because we've got, I don't know, we've been pretty aligned in, I suppose, our goals for the crossing and like why we're doing it, what we're trying to achieve with it. And so I think that alignment has meant, yeah, we haven't had any serious fallings out. Fortunately, yet, we've still got 1,200 miles to go. So I wanted to ask you, Kenton. I mean, I know that you take, individuals and groups. I like team dynamics. I wanted to ask about just morale in particular, because I think for us out here, kind of keeping our morale high is, I think, been really, really important to us enjoying the experience. And I think, like, the more we're enjoying it, the faster we go, and it's kind of good on all accounts. But I wanted to ask, yeah, when you're with groups of people, how does, when someone's really not enjoying, you're taking them up Everest or in the Alps or wherever it is, and someone's not enjoying it, how do you, are there any things that you do to try and bring morale up, or do you let people kind of just work through it in their own way? Or what's your kind of philosophy
Well,
with morale?
I suppose I suppose I'm really lucky in so much that I generally just work with one person. So I generally
Yeah.
don't work in groups. I mean, 15 years ago or whatever, I used to um, I used to work in groups and and personally found it very tricky because you've got these group dynamics of people coming to do something which is actually quite hard. It's quite dangerous. I mean, it's nowhere near as long as your trip. And
Mm,
the way that it used to work is everybody used to arrive in Kathmandu, nobody knows each other. And to be honest, the majority of Everest expeditions or any commercial expedition is still like this. So you get these people come together in Kathmandu. They don't actually know one another. They perhaps have slightly different motives for being there.
mm,
And you bring them into this high pressure environment and expect everybody to get on. And it simply does not always work that way.
mm,
And this is one of the reasons why I decided to change my working model and generally work with one person.
mm,
Um, and to spend a lot of time with that person. So you really get to understand who they are, what buttons you can push and when, what you need to do when they're in a funk or when they're riding high, what direction they move in when they're tired or hungry or pissed off or whatever it is. So you know exactly what you're working with.
mm,
And then my overriding thing with all these expeditions is the premise behind it generally is it's meant to be fun.
mm,
We are here because ultimately at some stage in the planning, in the journey, to get to where we are, we decided we want to do this because yes, it's going to be hard, it's going to be an adventure, but actually we want to do it because we want to have a good time and bring back great memories. And I think if you can align everybody into that philosophy, and of course you're going to have good days. Of course you're going to have bad days. Me as a mountain guide, I'm going to have good days. I'm going to have bad days. But I think if everybody's aligned on the vision,
mm,
the why are we here? Um, not an existential. I've got to lie on the floor and have panic attacks over the why I'm on the planet or anything like that. But what
mm,
why are we doing this? What is the I'm spacing the word. Once you get an idea of the why, then you're aligned. And then when you are having a crap day, and of course there's going to be crap days, what I generally do with a client is that it's going to be ebbs and flows, and you
mm,
just go with it a little bit. You give the client, you give him or her enough space, and then hopefully the relationship is strong enough that then you can start to sort of drip feed into that funk little elements of joy, things that
mm,
that they get off on, whether it's bring an extra chocolate bar to the dinner table, whether it's you play their favorite game, or you get them out of base camp. Well, probably a bit hard for you guys, but you get out of base camp and you
mm,
change the environment a little bit. You trot down to the nearest village, which for Everest is Gorat Shep, or you go climb up Kalapatar. You change the scene a little bit. You just change it up, and it's
mm.
amazing how quickly people generally come out of the funk.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, we're only on Everest for max of 30 days.
Yeah.
And Everest trip now door to door is about 5 weeks. And the environment's constantly changing because I think what, and I learned this from my own experiences years ago on expedition when we spent ages in a single base camp. If the environment, or let's put it the other way around, if you can mix the environment up, then you're constantly on the move, and if you're constantly on the move, then there isn't time to sit and ponder and navel gaze and build yourself into that position of a funk. So say on the trek, for instance, if you're trekking, you've got to get up, you've got to pack all your stuff away, then you've got breakfast, then you're on the trail. You might walk for a few hours, stop for a cup of tea, then you're walking for a few more hours. The scenery's changing. There's a constant mix up of the monotony. I'm
Yeah,
guessing that that's not an option for where you guys are. The monotony is going to be real. The navel gazing is going to be real, and you're going to run out of. Well, you probably didn't have any jokes before you went. You probably all heard them from one another. But
exactly. Yeah, we're
that
also none
ability.
of us are very funny, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, well, you're Scottish. I mean, it's like, yeah, I get that. Um, but I mean, I think that's the way that I always do it. And the other thing
Yeah.
is, when you well, when I get into a dark place, which happens from time to time, it's a case of what comes after darkness? Light. Day
Mhm.
always follows night,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I use that as a little mantra for myself. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
at, because
Love that.
the darkest of dark nights, when there's no moon and everything else, it
Mm,
can feel a bit scary. It can feel very enclosed. It can feel claustrophobic. But you know that if
mm.
you wait long enough, dawn's going to arrive. And this came from
Yeah, yeah.
shivering, really crappy bivouacs when you perhaps your sleeping bag's not good enough, or maybe you don't even have a sleeping bag, or you got half a bum cheek halfway up a North Face somewhere, and you're just thinking, "Oh, this is a living end. This is never going to end." And then you just think to
Yeah.
yourself, "Well, actually, it's dark now, but light follows darkness," and that became a
Yes.
bit of a matter for myself, and for me, that became super important.
I love that.
That's
I
great.
really love that. Yeah. What comes after darkness? Because I think it's, to be honest, I think I think it is similar. Like we've just, as we've mentioned, we've had periods of time when we've had to stop because of the weather. Um, and those are the times when I think you definitely get the most in your head. Like day to day, when we're moving, it is always changing because the weather's always changing. And like, right now we've not got much wind at all, but hopefully by this afternoon we'll have a bit of tailwind. And I think it's just forward motion. It's like the skies are always changing, the conditions are always changing, the sun's coming up, the sun's going down. But it's when you're on para anchor or you're on, that's when I think you just have a bit of time, because when you're not on the oars, there's shitloads to always be doing. So that
Yeah,
you just have to focus on doing all those things, and trying to, whatever, whether it's admin with cleaning solar panels, or it's making a slightly special meal, trying to make it a little bit more tasty for the next meal.
nice.
But yeah, it's funny when you stop, and it's funny having such a. You will have had this, no doubt. You must live. Yeah, it's a strange. You must just yo-yo between these two different existences when you have time and when you don't have time. Yeah, I think it's a funny thing. Time is yeah, certainly a funny thing. It's a blessing and a curse, I think.
Yeah, but that's one of the things I love about base camp life. Everything slows down,
Yeah.
because generally, or what I think in like Western society as we know it, it's so noisy, and there's such expectation on everything happening almost immediately, if not yesterday. People expect replies to stuff,
Yeah.
bang, bang,
Yeah.
bang. If we find ourselves in a queue, it's like, oh my God, this queue's like 3 deep, it's not moving. Whereas when you go into expedition, you you drop into a routine. Okay, it
Mm,
changes up a little bit on big expeditions, because you have different phases of those expeditions, but you generally have a routine which is relatively set, and you know where you stand, and the noise is stripped away, and
mm,
that, I think, is one of the most refreshing things that can
yeah.
ever happen. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, in ways, when I drop back into, air quotes here, normal life, well, I get a little bit overwhelmed with the noise and the clutter, and the
Mm,
constant drive
Yeah.
to to do something better than perhaps you did yesterday, and it just gets a little bit too much. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, on some of the other big rows that you've done. I mean, because I get asked this a lot. How do you find the reintegration? Because you finish a row, you've had this really intense period for, if you row in the Atlantic, I mean, what is it, like 40 to 50 days, 60 days, people take row in the Atlantic, I'm not sure. Um, and then you've got to reintegrate. And you've had
Yeah.
this massive adventure, you've had solitude, you've had these moments which are like totally unique. And then you get back home and it's almost as if you've never been.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
definitely. Yeah,
so how do you boys deal with that?
we had a very, I mean,
Right. Okay. Cool.
you guys can
Yeah.
swap. Okay. Yeah. Well, no.
We're,
So
we're gonna
yeah,
swap in a minute. Yeah.
um, yeah, from our Atlantic row. Yeah, it was actually quite bizarre. I mean, we were at sea for 35 days, and then we had, the chaos of arrival, and that was all quite exciting, and then we made our way home, and then it was quite bizarre because we were plunged from one form of isolation to another because that was when the UK went into lockdown. So it was
Okay,
it
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
it was just before. So it was, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing from that perspective because you didn't really have time to try and adjust to normal life because normal life completely changed.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we haven't. It'll be really interesting coming off the back of this one because it's been so much longer. It's been almost 4 times the length, and I think that readjustment period will be. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I suppose we don't quite know what to anticipate.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, because I suppose from with lockdown, you went from, I suppose it would have been a gradual reintegration, like everybody kind of
Mm,
experienced with lockdown, wouldn't it? Because certainly some of my clients have reintegration issues,
yeah.
and is one of the things that I try to slow down getting back home because we can get out of Everest Base Camp so quick these days.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a little bit scary. You can get a helicopter to Kathmandu, and then you can be pretty much, back in London 48 hours after being on the summit.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, it's just nuts. And I've done it loads of times, but even I still find it a bit nuts. Um,
How
yeah,
um how
I'm
how
just gonna. I'm
connected?
gonna drop out.
Okay.
Kenton, really lovely chatting. I need to get on the. I'm
yeah,
handing over to
you've
you.
got to
And
pull your weight.
great. I know. I know. Great to chat, man. Thanks so much for making the time.
No, my pleasure.
Hi, Kenton. How you getting on?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's just been a
Finally been
Wednesday. What day? Wednesday, yeah, Wednesday at home today, which has been pretty nice.
amazing.
I was yeah, on the same sort of vein, Kenton. I was going to ask how connected you remain when you go to base camp, and whether you, I mean, I suppose especially in recent years with modern technology, whether you've yeah used that more and allow your
Yeah.
clients to use that, or do you try and keep that distance and keep that sort of peace of mind?
So we never used to have it. I mean,
Yeah.
my first expedition to Pakistan, I was what 19. The only connection I had with home is I sent a fax to my father's office. Once we got back to Islamabad, and I wrote really, really small on two sides of A4 and faxed it back, and that was the only contact in 7 weeks or so, 8 weeks.
Wow.
And of course, I remember being in Everest Base Camp when these became connected. I'm sort of holding up a mobile phone, and I just remember thinking at the time, thinking, my shoulders sunk a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a shame because
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
now connected. But then at at the same time, I remember seeing the joy on the face of the cook because the cook could now speak to his family, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
he never could do because we all had sat phones, and sat phones are relatively expensive to use. I mean, I don't know what you're using. You're probably using
Yeah. We're,
BGAN or
exactly. Well, we
um,
began sat phones, and now obviously Starlink and that sort of thing has come in. But
yeah,
yeah, we still have the sat phones.
yeah. Starlink is a lot cheaper, but BGANs and sat phones are pretty expensive. And the Nepalese staff
Yeah.
couldn't afford to use them, and then all of a sudden they have this opportunity, and I just thought, well, who am I to, I thought it was sad that we were now connected, but who am I to say that sort of the development that we've been through shouldn't be the same for the Sherpas? So
Yeah.
actually, I think the connectivity at base camp is a really, really important thing. And if we want to dip in and out of it, that's entirely up to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do find is a bit of a shame is that you can walk into a mess tent because I always align on Everest at least. I always align with another operator for economies of scale and joviality. In the base camp, there's more people. You get a bit bored spending all your time with just one person playing.
Yeah.
There's only so many games of like crap cards you can play with two people. So to have lots
Yeah.
of other people there is pretty good. But you can walk into the mess tent and everybody is just looking at their phones.
Yeah.
And that really saddens me. That lack of connection to who is in your immediate space, I think is really, really sad. In fact, I saw it on social media only today. The three wise monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Well, there's this Instagram thing going around at the moment saying there's now a fourth monkey. And this monkey doesn't see anything, doesn't hear anything, doesn't speak to anybody. And it's a picture of a monkey looking at a phone.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So what I try to
Yeah.
do on expeditions is deliberately bring cards in, deliberately bring board games or rummy cup. I mean, it's only a small bag that I carry to try to have that connection.
Yeah.
Obviously from a safety perspective, connection is fantastic, but at the same time, it can be destructive, I think, a little bit. And then there's the thing about I always try to avoid speaking, or I used to try to avoid speaking to the family because selfishly, I found it quite difficult to then re-engage to what it is that I'm doing. There's this massive
Hmm.
tug at the heartstrings. It's like, oh my God, the children have just done this at home and I'm missing it and this is crap and maybe I want to ditch my job and become make it up like working finance or a firefighter or whatever it may be, rather than spend 6 months a year on expeditions around the world. So I struggled personally with the connection, at least initially, that technology gives us. But on the positive
Yeah.
side, the weather forecast. I mean, that's absolutely paramount. The ability to bring in, sort of rescue facilities as and when we need it. The ability to restock base camps and things like that. It has made life infinitely easier, safer, and probably more successful in terms of getting summits, but at the expense of that. And I've got rose tinted spectacles of that camaraderie that you build at base camp. That seems to have
Hmm.
disappeared through technology.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
long-winded answer, wasn't it? I mean, sorry about
No,
that.
it was
No.
really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. There's so many parallels. I think for absolutely the same for us. Being able to check weather whenever we want is just absolutely, it's completely game changing compared to even 5 years ago when we rode across the
Yeah,
Atlantic and it was
yeah.
just a
You
Began and
put
it
your
was a
finger up.
Safford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 You would be looking at a barometer. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if you even have a barometer with you. You just like sort of log on and check. Well, you must have a barometer. You got one on your watch probably. But it's yeah. I
There's
mean,
something quite special about that. Yeah. And I think
yeah,
what you were saying about the kind of the emotional strain, that it's really hard to get that balance right of connection with loved ones when you're on expedition. I think we've really found that it's difficult for us on the boat, and it's difficult when you're really missing a loved one. You speak to them, and they're that it's a reciprocal thing. They're like missing you, and you can't really do anything about it. In our situation, you say the words that you can to try and kind of comfort the situation, but it's hard and it makes it really difficult on both sides. And getting the cadence of that right and making sure that you're keeping the right amount of contact and you're keeping the right kind of perspective on the whole thing to, yeah, I guess to kind of make those conversations special and positive as opposed to like really difficult sometimes and really it can take you out of the boat or off the mountain in your case I think for a longer period than you necessarily want to be and I think that being out of the boat it can be a dangerous thing frankly and
yeah,
it can really
yeah.
affect morale and really affect a lot of things.
And I think the other thing is, well, I don't know about you guys, but I genuinely put too much emphasis on it. Jazz would say, yeah, can you ring tomorrow at like 6 o'clock your time? The children will be home from school, and so you build this thing up, and then you have the call, and then you don't say what you want to say, or you say something and it's taken the wrong way, or they say something and it's taken the wrong way by you, and then when you finish the call, you just left. Oh, that didn't go the way I wanted to. I didn't get the words
Yeah.
out. I didn't get my feelings out. And I don't know about you, but it just crushes me. And it's like, oh. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, then I mope back to my tent and I'm just like, oh, that was really crap. So that technology thing is, yeah, it's tricky. I mean, but it's, I mean, we're talking now via, well, it's not Zoom, is it? It's like Riverside, and you're on a BGAN or Starlink, and and I do the same with my podcast. I have this sort of bit of a preconceived idea of how I want it to go, and when it doesn't, because it's virtual and yeah, it's hard to pick up on emotions. It's hard to pick up on body language. It's hard to pick up on all these little nuanced things, and it's so easy on expedition. If your headspace is in the wrong place, and you have a call with a loved one, and they don't say what you're expecting them to say, or maybe they don't say "I love you" at the end. Not because they don't love you, but they just haven't said it. That manifests itself in a
Yeah.
much greater way than it would, when you're at home, and
Yeah.
you don't have the call dropping off, or yeah, it's hard. But let's just cut to the chase. It's hard. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a real kind of, I think there's a real magnification of the emotions that you feel. I think you have real troughs and real peaks of, euphoria when it's, you're at the summit, or, we sometimes for out here, we've got an amazing sky, and I don't know, you can have the most amazing experiences, but then it's kind of framed with the lows that are just, they're absolutely, as you described, they're totally crushing. And I think it's, you're in an environment, I guess, where you can't escape. You can't just go for in our case, we can't even go for a walk to clear the head.
Yeah.
You're really trapped there, and you've got to be able to, I guess, navigate those emotions without being able to use all the tools that you would do in normal life, I guess, to kind of get through that difficult patch. Um, but then at the same time, you've got the highs to kind of frame it. So I think you lose some and you gain some, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. But I think your term there is like the magnification of emotions. The highs are super high, the lows can be super low. Yeah, I think that's quite astute. And it's exactly the same thing on climbing expeditions. You have the darkest of days, but like I was telling your brother earlier, when the light comes, then you're on, well, quite literally what I do. I'm on cloud nine. I'm on top of the world.
Yeah,
But then the troughs are pretty big, and it's magnified, and now, you're probably not scrolling social media and things like that, but we can get social media at Everest base camp and things like that, and we all know the dangers of social media, and it's perhaps not a true reflection of life. And again, it's magnified, and you see all your
yeah,
mates are rock climbing when you're sitting out bad weather, or they're socializing, or they're at the cricket, or whatever it is, and you're just like, Jesus, I'm missing it again, and again, it's amplified.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I say, yeah, that's offset by its. If I was a stronger person, I wouldn't be on social media at all, because I don't really get clients through
Yeah,
social media. Yeah,
yeah,
and I would just use devices and the internet for all the positive things that it has.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a really hard thing to do though when these things are designed
Did you forget?
to, you
Well, yeah,
know, in the way that they are.
lure you in and to seduce you and to addict you.
Yeah.
Um, and it's did you forget to pack the lip salve? Your lip salve.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I had we right at the beginning of the trip, and I always get it when I go, I guess, into kind of a cold environment. If I'm skiing, or kind of ski mountaineering, I always get chapped lips every single time, and I try my best to put lip salve on and sun cream. Exact same thing happened at the beginning of this trip, cracked lips, and I think it's really just sun exposure.
And for the whole crossing, it's kind of gone away, and I've not been using kind of a lip sun protection probably for the last kind of 2.5 months. And then last week, like I don't know if we just had a really there was a bad patch of UV, but I had a little bit of kind of peeling on my arms, my forearms, which was kind of quite surprising. I was mostly covered up otherwise, but again on my bottom lip, I just got I think a bit of sunburn, so it's kind of cracked, which is kind of makes me look even more haggard than I probably
Yeah,
already
well, it
feel.
kind of makes you look gnarly. Yeah, it definitely. So I got this theory with lip balm and lip salve or whatever you call it. You either got to use it and use it all the time, or don't use it at all.
Yeah.
Mm,
And the times that I don't use it at all, my lips seem to sort of self care. And then,
yeah,
when I use it, I mean, I use it more often than I don't. But I think you've got to be all in or not. And I think if you
yeah,
use it intermittently, that's when you screw your lips up.
yeah.
And it's so painful. I
It's
remember coming
such a
off
pain.
yeah, my second or third Himalayan expedition. The first time I've been to Nepal, I think we dropped the sun cream on the mountain, and we
Oh
came
no.
down, and our faces were just like falling off, and the lips are like 15 times worse than yours. And we were coming back into base camp, and I remember screaming ahead to my mate who was running ahead to tell the cook to start cooking food, and I just screaming to Chris, I'm like, tell Bibby, no spice, no spice in the food. They would have just, we've been on the mountain for like 5, 6 days and run out of food and everything.
Uh,
And it's like, and yeah, any spice in the food would have been horrendous. So I'll never forget
Oh,
that. And it's
gee.
like,
We
so
had
yeah,
a
something.
kind of similar, well, a similar thing that we'd forgotten. I think we were pretty good. We remembered most things, but there was one item which most of our medical kit. We worked with a doctor who's done a bit of kind of expedition medicine to put together the big medi bag that we've got for dealing with. I mean, so many different situations, which we hope none of them come to pass. So we got this huge medical bag, but he decided he thought there's no point in giving us all the pseudocreme before we leave because it'll be quite a lot of pseudocreme. We should just get that out in Lima. And of course, there's just a million other things that we were trying to work through. And because it's kind of it's like a personal care item that you almost
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it
yeah.
just wasn't on the
But
lists
perhaps
basically that we were going through.
little bit lower down the list than perhaps it should be.
yeah.
Exactly, and it is absolutely critical. I can tell you because the amount of particularly salt exposure, salt is really corrosive to the skin, and the unfortunately it's your backside that takes the
Well,
hit, and
I can say I could just tell by your actions there, your shoulders were going back. You were touching your backside there, as
yeah,
if to say that, yeah, 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 this is the worst part.
it
Because I
really
saw
is,
pictures,
and
I'm quite friendly. I'm
yeah,
pretty friendly with Ben Fogle and James Cracknell, and the state of
Yeah.
yeah,
Cracknell's backside after that, where it was just horrendous,
Was it
not
really?
oh,
nice at all. And there's nothing you can do about it. You kind of like you just sat there and squirming around in your seat, and it's abject misery.
it
So
really is.
how is the backside?
Well, we had particularly bad weather at the beginning, so we had a lot of weather coming onto the side of the boat, which was washing over the boat, and we were getting absolutely soaked and covered in salt the whole time. But we also had, what you usually do is every single night shift, so it's kind of twice a day at least. You'll be wiping down with baby wipes, and during the day, if you get covered in salt, you'll wash down with fresh water. And we were washing down during the day, but at night we didn't have the sorry, the critical bit as well is you'd usually wipe with the baby wipes and then you'd put the pseudocreme on whilst you're sleeping just to try and repair the skin slightly. And of course we'd forgotten the pseudocreme, which was at the beginning we thought it was going to just go off a cliff and be an absolute nightmare, but luckily the weather kind of changed around a bit after about 6 weeks, and we brought a couple of different seat options. And actually, I think what we changed to, which is basically just a dry bag with a foam insert, that seems to be much better. So it's been not too bad. It's been not too bad actually for the last couple of months. But it was the first month we were like, if this keeps going the direction it's going, this is going to be pretty bad by the time we get to Australia.
Nasty. And what about your hands? I mean, because a buddy of mine, Alex Gregory, he did an Arctic row. Yeah, and he's an ex-professional rower, so I mean his hands are pretty used to pulling an oar, and his hands were just a mess,
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
absolute mess, and he just like withered. Well, not withered, but yeah, they were. I mean, yeah, they were just ripped to pieces.
Yeah.
Similar sort of thing, or have you managed
Yeah.
to keep your hands in the
Quite
sand?
similar. I mean, you can probably kind of see they're not too bad when they're
Yeah,
dry, but there's been a couple like these splits that's nearly healed. But I certainly had a point where I had kind of two different splits where the skin had, you go through phases. It's funny that at first you get blisters and the blisters turn to calluses and they're not too bad. You get quite a lot of salt sores at the beginning as well. And then I don't know, your hands kind of toughen up, but then I've started to suffer from these splits, which are kind of across the finger where there's the most amount of pulling from each oar stroke, and that has been pretty uncomfortable to be honest. You've got to, you do what you can to try and put compeeds on it, or we've got these kind of silicone hand pads which you use to try and relieve the pressure. But the thing that's actually worse for me at least, and it's okay during the day, but you get because you're holding the oar and you're not generally putting that much force through a kind of a hand that's you're holding an oar with. And after, I mean, I think we calculated over the duration of the trip, we'll do something like 6 million oar strokes because of the cadence we're rowing at, which is absolutely
is that
ridiculous.
each or between you?
That's between us. But
Wow.
it's still quite a lot to do each, 2 million oar strokes each. And
That's still
just
too
the
mean. I mean, it's
repetitiveness.
ridiculous.
Yeah. But you get like a kind of claw, well, I've certainly been getting kind of the tendons, they almost feel kind of bruised down your hand. And you wake up and you've got this kind of claw grip, which I've really only got it in kind of two fingers where it's particularly bad. Lachlan seems to be fine. He seems to have avoided it somehow. But that I think is the lasting thing. I think your skin heals quite quickly, but the claw grip, I think if it's really bad, we've been very diligent with the training and very diligent with the stretches on board. So I think it's probably a lot better than it could be. But we've certainly heard of
Yeah.
rowers that have suffered from that for 6 months to a year after getting back and waking up and having their
And the
hands kind of
stretch
completely
is it
clenched.
literally just like a hand stretch? You
Yeah.
just the
It's
opposite that you would get from pulling the oar.
exactly that, and then also during each oar stroke, we try and kind of stretch our hands out and kind of wriggle our fingers every now and again, so like you're playing the piano between each oar stroke, and that
Yeah.
just kind of it stops you from gripping the oar, which you shouldn't really do anyway. It should be kind of as best you can when the seas are all over the place. You bloody well want to hold on to that oar because if you don't and you get a wave coming on the side, you just end up smashing your shins in or your knees in with the oar if you're not holding on to it. Even when you're holding on to it, to be honest, you end up with kind of bruises and cuts down your shins, kind of inevitably. But yeah,
And well, it seems to be me asking all the questions. I mean, the high point of the trip.
what would you say, Jamie?
High point of the trip so far. Um, what has been the high point? I mean, real a real motivator for us has been the charitable fundraising, and recently, we get updates from our shore team of how that's going, and it was ticking over to begin with, but when we recently hit 500,000, and I think
Oh
that
wow!
was a real high point for the three of us because I mean it's the sort of coming back to like the reason why we're out here and the shared objectives and
Yeah, it's your
for,
purpose.
for the for the three of us, it's our purpose, and it was always a bit. We were never really sure whether we'd get even close. I mean, we're still a long way off from the goal is 1 million. Um, we're still a long way off, but even to get to where we have that moment that evening when we got that through on the Garmin InReach, I think that was just a really special moment because it seemed like what we're doing, yeah, is going to make a difference,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
a really special
That's really
moment for us.
cool. Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't hit 1 million, I mean, 500,000 pounds is a significant amount of money. Oh, well done, you guys.
Yeah,
And then, I
amazing.
mean, I've got to ask, low point.
Oh, low points. There's been quite a few. I think probably about 2 weeks in, um, me and Jamie, which we hadn't really suffered from it before, but both me and Jamie had been suffering from seasickness for like the whole first 2 weeks of the crossing. And, when you're 2 weeks in, and 2 weeks is quite a long, it's quite a long time doing anything. And you then look at the map, you zoom out, and you're like, we have not even, we've not even started, and we're feeling absolutely, both of us were, yeah, you feel really rubbish when you can't kind of hydrate properly, you're not fueling properly, and just the positivity is just gone. You feel absolutely rubbish, and I think that was probably the lowest point. I think, yeah, for us. There was probably some other ones. I don't know if there's another one for you.
We got hit by a pretty. We got hit by. I mean, it was about a month and a half ago now, just before Tonga. We got hit by quite a hard storm, like an anticyclone, and it was. I mean, we were going into it quite excited because the boat is designed to surf these big waves. So
Yeah.
if you get the right conditions following seas, you just end up going so much faster, and it's quite exciting. And the three of us gonna we get a bit of a kick off those conditions, but every sort of 10th wave just came 90 degrees to the boat and just completely just wiped us out and would soak everything. We had a couple knockdowns, and then that evening it was dark. I'd gotten into the bow cabin, and Lachlan was just getting ready at the stern cabin. And in those conditions, you've got to get all your kit off, get all your wet stuff off, and then jump in as quick as possible in case a wave hits. And Lachlan, getting his stuff up at the stern where Ewan's standing now, and it's just a massive wall of water slammed into the side of the boat and threw Lachlan over the safety line and overboard.
Jesus.
Um, Thankfully, like we wear climbing harnesses like 24/7, and when you're on deck, you're always clipped on with a safety line. So thankfully, he was clipped on, and he was just being dragged a couple meters behind the boat. But I think that was certainly a low point for Lala, and I think a bit of a rude awakening for all of us. Just Ewan was on the oars, just watching it all happen in sort of slow mo. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that was probably immediately after that was a bit of a low point.
Wow.
it's
And
probably
and
it is after though, isn't it? It's not, because I think in the moment for me, I don't know. It's not a high point. It's definitely not a high point, but it's not a low point either. In the you're not. It's not an emotional moment. I wouldn't say it's time just freezes and you're acting like you're as fast as you can trying to get. I mean, I dropped the oars, ran up, and then started hauling Lachlan in, and you're not even you're totally present in that moment. You're not thinking about your emotions at all. It's just kind of getting through that rescue situation as best as possible. But Kenton, I mean, you must have had some pretty hairy moments over the years. Where either with yourself being in requiring rescue, or performing a rescue with people out there. I mean, have there been any kind of standout ones that have, I guess, been yeah.
well, I mean, luckily it's never been too bad on Everest. I mean, I've been involved with trying to help people. I mean, Mr. Lee back in 2013. I mean, he died in my arms, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, climbing is a. Well, I say climbing is a relatively slow thing, but it's probably a bit like rowing. It's very, very monotonous until it's not. And then the moment it's not, it's like absolute chaos for a period of time. And then it's very, very monotonous again. I suppose it's a little bit like climbing. Um, yeah, I mean, there's been, I mean, luckily when I'm working, you try to build in the biggest safety net you can because you're providing a service to a sort of paying client. But yeah, there've been periods of having to inject dexamethasone into some Sherpas who are suffering from pulmonary or cerebral edema. I mean, I think the biggest one for me, and this was a real wake up call. We were on Annapurna 3 some 20 odd years ago, trying a hard new route on a very remote mountain. And interestingly, no tech. We had no
Yeah.
tech in 2003. We had no cell phone. We had no weather forecasting. So we really just sort of sticking our noses into it. And and that trip had a bit of everything. And at one stage, we honestly thought that John Varco, this American dude we were climbing with, there's three of us, I honestly didn't think he was going to survive the night.
Yes.
Yet we were totally helpless to what we could do. And when I mentioned about light follows darkness, that night was one of the most horrific nights. I mean, we were freezing cold. We hadn't eaten enough. We had climbed through the crux of the hardest part of the route. We were physically, mentally exhausted. And then I thought John was going to die. I mean, it was such a horror show. And that's where that mantra came from. Light always follows dark. Because I remember falling asleep at some stage. And when I next woke up, you could see the sun cracking the horizon. I'm like, oh my God, the sun's going to hit us in a couple of hours and we're going to warm up and, we might actually get through this. But the horror of knowing that John wasn't very well, he'd been coughing up blood.
Ah,
And, we just couldn't carry a significant first aid kit. There was nothing we could do for him. We had no comms, not that in 2003 you could call in a heli rescue. That made me feel very, very vulnerable. That inability to do anything about this scenario. And I suppose in the Alps, I mean, I've been rescued in the Alps with clients, but it's normally for broken collarbones or something like that. It's not a life-threatening. I've been skiing with a client who's fallen over or popped a collarbone or got picked off the top of the Matterhorn with Sam Branson, Richard Branson's son, because he was suffering from altitude sickness. But it wasn't necessarily life-threatening. I think I've been quite lucky in my climbing career in so much that I've not been involved in the blood and the gore, which a significant number of my colleagues have, i.e.
yeah.
their climbing partner's fallen off and ripped their leg off, or they've got a compound fracture, or whatever it may be, where you've really got to dig deep and as a unit, as a team, work together to get out of these situations. The situations that I've experienced, oxygen delivery system failures with Ben Fogle and things like that. Yes, they put everybody into jeopardy, but they're not necessarily life-threatening, like in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you just got to call an experience. And like you were alluding to, you just go into a mode of operation which is just second nature. And you're seeing a situation, and if you've got enough experience, you're like, okay, we might not have experienced this before, but we've experienced something similar. And this is what we had to do, or this is how it unfolded. And I think you just start working through those touch points of familiarity to get yourself out of the situation. And like say, it's only afterwards when you've got time to breathe and to process what's happened. It's like, oh shit, God,
That's the
did
kind of
that really?
traumatic bit almost.
Yeah. I mean, a really good friend of mine, one of the Benson boys. So there's these two amazing climbers from just north of Glasgow, or from Glasgow, Bears Den, and Andy, one of the twins, he had a really bad climbing accident in Glencoe. Ripped half his face off. His ice axe failed, and he took this big fall, and the stump of the ice axe like impaled in his jaw and ripped his jaw to shreds. And it was on Lost Valley Buttress, I think, which is a long walk from the car. And it was him and Rich Cross, and they had to get off the route, try to patch Andy up the best they could, walk back to the car, which is some 2 hours or so, 3 hours back to the car in failing light, with Andy literally holding his jaw in place. And then Rich said everything was cool until we got to the car. And then when we got to the car, Andy just went into full shock, because you've reached an island of safety. All they had to do was drive to Fort William Hospital, and he could get treated. So he held it together, but then because there's that moment of respite that you're not in the moment anymore. And I say he fell to pieces. That puts him in a bad light, doesn't it? Because I think anybody else that I know wouldn't have even got that far anyway. I mean, apparently he even had the wherewithal. This is before we had our phones, but we had digital cameras. He took a picture of himself while hanging on the rope to turn it round to see the extent of the damage.
Oh,
Wow.
So to have that wherewithal in the moment I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the body running on adrenaline and running on experience.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
I
yeah,
guess
I mean, climbing when it goes wrong, it goes seriously wrong.
yeah, I think we could ask you so many more questions. I mean, I think one final one that I've got is kind of on this. It's kind of exposure training because I think we've tried. Obviously, I think having done the Atlantic, you get an amount of experience, but even then, we went through caps. We took the boat, we capsized it in a bay, then we took a life raft, and we took it to a surf resort, and kind of got a life raft rolling around in these kind of this surf simulator to kind of know what it feels like, and it's I guess trying to expose yourself to these
Yeah.
things. But for you with clients, I guess you want to make sure that they're ready to go on that mountain. And do you have an amount of exposure that you need to kind of make sure that they've gone through before you feel that they're ready, or is it can they go through that journey from the start of their climb through to the end of it, and that builds enough experience for them with you being there as the kind of experienced guide?
Yeah, so what we do, I try to build up experience over. So my clients, we normally work together for 2 or 3 years before we go to Everest.
Yeah.
We may go to the Himalayas, we may go down to, Aconcagua down in the Andes. We could climb in Bolivia, or we do a lot in the European Alps. And what we're trying to do is, you know, build that relationship between the two of us, which I think is as important as the technical
Yeah.
skill and the having the physical attributes to do what the climb is going to entail. Because let's face it, Everest, you don't need to be an Olympic athlete, you don't need to be the most skilled climber in the world, but you need the right mindset. And a bit like you boys, you're in a relatively close environment for a long period of time, so you need to get on. So there is that, and part of that journey is exposing the client or the team, that's me and the client, to different scenarios. So we just get used to it. And it could be what people don't realize about Everest, it gets stinking hot on Everest. People just think it's really, really cold. And it can be really, really cold, but it can be really, really hot. And then um, it's getting the systems dialed. So, when it is cold, where are your mitts, which mitts work best. If you've got to handle ropes, you can't really handle ropes with mitts on, so you've got to use gloves. Which glove system works best for you? How do you look after the gloves so they don't get too wet? How do you dry them out? What's your tent craft like? What's your personal admin like? On the mountains, you need to dry your socks out. So there's all this stuff that you can practice, a bit like you guys did. You don't necessarily need to practice it at 8,000 meters. You can practice it not quite in your backyard, but
Mm.
you can go to Scotland, you can go to the Alps, you can endure these environments without having to spend a fortune and go to
Yeah.
the Himalayas or something like that. And I think it's absolutely critical. Like we're saying, when things go wrong, if you have enough experience, you can dip your hand in that cookie jar because you've made all the deposits over time, and the weather turns bad, or it's like, okay, I've experienced this before. We're not doing this. I need my mitts, or I need to put my hard shell on, or we're about to stop. I'm going to get cold. I need to put my jacket on, and a lot of that I can do as a guide. I can tell people to do that, but
Yeah.
if it's second nature, then it just makes everybody's life that much easier. And that just comes from experience. One of the key, I speak quite a lot in schools, and I tell the youngsters, everybody today is looking for a hack. Everybody's looking for a fast way to success. And you know what? You speak to any successful person, and they're going to say the same thing. It's a grind. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It does not come easy to you. So you got to be prepared for it. And once you get your head around that, then I think you're a long way to you're on the right path to fulfill the journey, whatever your journey is. But
Yeah.
no one's going to do it for you. You've got to learn yourself to an extent, and that comes from practice. And try to work out every possible scenario, and
Yeah.
because you can train for every possible scenario, and the thing that happens is going to be the one thing that you're not thought of. Uh,
Absolutely.
that is going to be the one thing that
Yeah.
happens on Tuesday afternoon. It's going to sideswipe you. Like how much preparation do you guys do? And you forgot the hair bands and the Sudocrem. It's
Yeah,
just like
exactly. And you
you
can't, as
can't
you
have
say,
it
you
all.
can't get in those environments as well. Like you simply can't get into like 30-foot waves on the coast of Scotland. They just don't exist there. Well,
Yeah,
I suppose you could maybe go up to, well, you might be able to find it, but I don't. Yeah, it's not like being in an ocean environment, and it's not like you know you're not going to be able to practice the sleep deprivation really in the same way. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks only having 4.5 hours. Well, I suppose you can, but I don't think yeah, you're not going to know what you're going to feel like physically doing that sort of thing until you're actually in it. So it's kind of doing what you can
mm,
to
yeah,
then
yeah. But,
have the tools to
but
get through it.
yeah, exactly. To an extent, you can put some you can put some of the tools in the toolbox, but really you just got to do it. And the more
Yeah,
you do it, the more you're going to experience it. The more you're going to experience these, the ups, the downs, the things that go right, the things that go wrong. Yeah, and it's as much about learning about what goes right and why it goes right as much as what goes wrong.
yeah,
People sometimes forget about focusing on the things that go right because we just take it for granted. Um, so yeah, it's just getting out there and doing as much of it as you can. And I don't know what's left for you guys to row. I mean, perhaps you end up going down the Southern Ocean or something ridiculous,
oh
but
gosh,
you'll be
right,
building
obviously.
them. There we go. So sow the seed now. God, that'd be horrendous, wouldn't it? But yeah, but you're building on what you did in the in that surf area. You're building on what you did on in the Atlantic. You're building on what you're doing now. Yeah, and that's where you know that's where excellence comes from. It doesn't come from a hack. It doesn't come from reading a book. It's getting out there and actually doing it and feeling it and experiencing it. That's what's important.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great message to end on. I think, Kenton, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's been a really great
One
chat. It's
more
been
time,
so
yeah, thank you
interesting.
guys. I mean, it's just epic. You're
Well,
in the middle of the Pacific. I can't believe it.
it's quite bizarre. It's one of the definite benefits of having Starlink and being able to kind of set up these calls. And I think that it's been a totally unexpected thing for us. And yeah, it's amazing to connect with yourself and have such an interesting chat. And we'll take a lot from it. And I hope it'll go up online. It'll hopefully, I think there's some cool messages. I think you've shared some really cool stuff there. So thank you so much, and hopefully we can
Well, I
catch up
mean,
when we're in the UK. We owe you a freeze dried meal.
yeah, no,
We'd love you to give it a try.
I'm just saying, bring your bagpipes.
Yeah,
And yeah, no, I think what you guys are doing is great. I'm going to push a charity side and things like that. Let's try and raise awareness and make your purpose even stronger.
awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good evening. See you
Okay.
later.
Yeah,
All the
bye,
best.
boys.
Bye.